We are here to talk about the DOGE Caucus that I have founded in the Senate. So I am the chair of the DOGE Caucus there. We also have a DOGE Caucus that has begun in the House as well. And we have three phenomenal co-chairs in the House. And probably no coincidence there either, but all four of us play congressional baseball. So the co-chairs over on the House side are Aaron Bean, Blake Moore. Aaron Bean is from Florida, Blake Moore of Utah, and then Pete Sessions of Texas. So we have this really great rapport between the Senate, between the House, and our caucuses. So we've got them going, we've got them off the ground. But I'll give you a little background on this because this is not a new effort for me. You heard Mark say, make them squeal. Well, that was the first ad that I ever ran in my primary in 2014, running for the United States Senate. So cutting waste, watching for fraud, putting abuse in check is something that I have had great interest in. And probably most of you in the room don't realize the first elected office I ever held, I was a county auditor in Iowa. And I scrutinized the books of my little old county, Montgomery County, for many years before I went on to the state Senate. And protecting our budget at the state Senate was also very important to me. And I was part of a group of individuals in the state Senate that I was able to work with the folks through budget, through appropriations, to turn a budget shortfall to an actual excess or plussed up with the revenues that we were able to get at our state budget within the state coffers, and end with an excess. I think we had about $900 million. And for a small state like Iowa, that's a really big deal. So anyway, brought that same thought into Washington, D.C. So here we have a new era under President Trump. We have new opportunity with the Department of Government Efficiency. And I was really glad when President Trump kind of grabbed a hold of this. I was able to sit down with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk prior to President Trump taking office. So I met with them in November down at Mar-a-Lago and presented them with a blueprint of about $2 trillion of savings, which is exactly what Elon Musk had said they wanted to achieve in the Department of Government Efficiency. So folks are like, oh my gosh, $2 trillion, how'd you find it? Well, what I will say is if you're working in federal government and you cannot find waste anywhere, it just tells me you're not looking. Because there is waste everywhere. I don't care what agency or department, there is waste. And that's what we are going to combat. So again, it's been about 10 years so that I've been looking and tracking waste, abuse within our system, and again, make them squeal. I came here into the Senate in 2015, January 2015, and I have been doing Squeal Awards monthly for 10 years. So we find waste or abuse within the federal government, and we don't just stop there. My team and I then also look at ways that we can correct those deficiencies, the ways that we can combat the waste. So we take a problem and we propose a solution to it. Now, unfortunately, most of the legislation around efficiencies, around cost savings, going after abuse, a lot of times it falls on deaf ears. So I've got 10 years worth of legislation that is ready to go. And we are finally able to take it to a department now within our federal government department. It is what it is. It's established by President Trump, not actually a department, but we now have a platform where we can actually affect change in the federal government, whether it's through regulation, whether it's through legislation, or whether it is through budgetary actions, processes like reconciliation. So I love it. But yes, we provided that blueprint so very early on to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. So some of the things that we've already seen accomplished. Okay, day one. I love how the news on TV, if you go on to CNN or Fox News, they're talking about the first 100 days. I'm like, we've already had one day and we're already seeing results. Okay, so day one, yes, thank you, Rebecca. Day one, President Trump is already out there signing the executive orders in order to enact change. And so day one, what did he do with federal workers? Back to work, everybody. So I have an out-of-office report that I published late last year. And through the research that I did with my team, we discovered that prior to COVID-19, prior to the pandemic, 3% of federal workers teleworked. That's normal. There's opportunities for telework out. 3% of our federal workforce. What we found while we were doing the research, and again, this was just several months ago that we did the research, we found that 6% today of federal workers, 6%, report to work every day of the week, which means 94% of our federal workforce is taking advantage of telework. I'm not saying they're all bad actors, folks. Do not get me wrong, because everybody's like, oh, Joni Ernst doesn't like telework. No, I'm just saying that if you are teleworking, you better darn well be doing your job. And we're not going to keep doing the COVID model where you just don't even show up a single day every week. You don't want people to track your work. You don't want your supervisors to know where you are. That era is gone, folks. If we are going to have teleworkers, we're going to make sure that there are standards in place. Okay, that's really important. We have to be able to track productivity of those employees. It should be a reward for those that are good workers to be able to telework, not just something that everybody gets to take advantage of. So President Trump took action, says the federal workforce has to come back. He signed this executive order and he called all of these bureaucrats back to the office. And we really do need this. The American people expect better of our federal workforce, and I hope that they get it. We are, I'm sure, going to have pushback. The unions are already filing lawsuits. Many of them tried to renegotiate labor contracts before President Trump came into office. And what they tried to do was extend those contracts to the year 2029 after Trump leaves office. Okay, because they knew they would be called back to work and actually have to do their jobs. Okay, so we'll stay on top of that. So what is Congress's role in DOGE? What should we be doing? So we know that our American taxpayers, our constituents, will benefit more if we are actually watching for the waste that's out there. We know that everybody loses when taxpayer dollars are wasted. For the limited resources we have to make sure they're working for the American people. So the DOGE Caucus, what we have actually done is really put Washington, D.C. on notice. Okay, so we're going to ferret it out. If there's waste out there, we're going to find it. We're going to propose changes and try and enact those changes. So we are a working caucus. Okay, we have a lot of caucuses out there, and I love it. I'm on so many different, I'm a co-founder of the Motorcycle Caucus. You know, I love to ride my motorcycle. That's great. But, you know, as far as being a working caucus, there's, you know, only a few limited things that we can work on as motorcycle caucus. But as a DOGE caucus, we're touching every federal government agency, every action, every reaction. And we have had several meetings already, as has the House. And we will be working then with the administration and Elon Musk. Vivek has departed. He's going to focus more on political activities, run for governor in Ohio. But with Elon, we will be working hand in hand with him. And he has been very, very supportive of my efforts. He has had the opportunity now to go back through the 10 years of work that I have done, and he is over the moon. He actually literally is over the moon. Anyway, Mars next, everybody. But it is good because we're going to scrutinize as a caucus in both chambers. Scrutinize spending. We're going to watch regulations and see how we can enact those or enact change to regulations that are inhibiting progress here in the United States. And we're going to use data and outcomes as we evaluate different programs, not just ideology. And I think that's a big difference between this administration and the last administration. What we do is going to be based on outcomes for the American people, not DEI, not let's all be inclusive. We're just going to do what's best for Americans. So we're really excited about that. We are going to be looking at reconciliation opportunities. I can't tell you today whether it's going to be one big beautiful bill or whether we're going to have two bites at the apple. It's going to be based on what can the House do. Okay, we know that Speaker Johnson has got just a very, very narrow margin of opportunity over there. So we will work with them and do the best we can. Okay, so looking forward. Telework report. It's based off of years of investigations. We've got all kinds of information that we can provide there. The $2 trillion proposal of cuts that I have put forward just as a blueprint, it included auditing the IRS. Many of the actual employees of the IRS owe billions of dollars back to the IRS. So both current and former employees. And if they are going to have the privilege of working for the IRS, they actually should probably pay their taxes. So that's just one small idea. But pulling the plug on billion-dollar boondoggles and gravy trains, think about Nancy Pelosi's train out in Silicon Valley. We have literally miles of trains that they want to build and develop in California that are costing us hundreds of millions of dollars per mile. So with very little benefit to the rest of our taxpayers. So pull the plug on it. And then we're gonna bag the swag. This is one, so Allison, raise your hand again. This is Allison, and she works on my team that does my squeal work. Anything that has a dollar, the way she says it, anything that has a dollar figure assigned to it goes through Allison. So Allison, we are getting ready to reintroduce our SWAG Act, which is a lot of government advertisement, like pens you can hand out, keychains, all that kind of stuff. Why are we paying for that stuff as a federal government? We're going to bag the swag, but it is literally millions of dollars in people's budgets or departments' budgets every year. We're going to cut that, and then we're going to change the composition of coins so that we actually stop losing money on our money. So for every penny that we have to manufacture, it costs us about a nickel to produce that penny. So there are ways that we can keep the weight the same but change the composition of the metals within that penny to make it cheaper to produce coins. The same is true for nickels and dimes and so forth.
So Senator, when you talk about efficiencies, there's talk about moving some of the bureaucracy out of Washington.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Department of Interior, move it closer to the western states where the public lands are. Are there opportunities to move some of the people from Department of Agriculture closer to the men and women who actually grow our food.
You mean like Iowa?
Maybe.
Right. No, I love it. So years ago during the first Trump administration, I actually had a bill called the Swamp Act, which would move the agency headquarters out of Washington, D.C. and into the areas where they best represent the constituencies that use those agencies. So Sonny Perdue actually did begin the movement of some various departments out into the Midwest, which was great. And he was the Secretary of Ag. We would like to see more than that. So yes, there are a number of bills that do this that have been introduced by our caucus members. I also have a bill, and it's focused on the Small Business Administration moving 30% of their workers from Washington, D.C., relocating those positions out into the states. Because what we have seen is, especially with the Small Business Administration, you would think they would want to be out in the states actually working as field staff to assist small businesses. But in recent years, we've seen this huge consolidation. People being pulled out of the states to work here in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but when my folks in Iowa are trying to get a hold of somebody here in D.C., they never get a call back.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I think they're on the beach instead of here. But it doesn't make sense to have all of these agencies focused here when they could do a better job. If they have to go to the grocery store and face someone that's actually dealing with an issue in their department, they think a little bit more about what they're doing and the rules and regulations that they're writing. I sit on the Ag Committee. You know, I love agriculture. I'm from a farm family. My family is still engaged in agriculture. But I tell you what, down at USDA, I don't know how many people that occupy those cubicles have actually ever visited a farm.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. And since they are only, I think, 12% occupied right now in that building, I may never ever know. So hopefully those that need to be back to work, we get them back to work. Those that don't need to be back to work, they can go away. And then maybe we relocate the rest of those seats out into the Midwest or California where they have big ag, Texas where they have cattle ranching, you name it. They should be accountable to the people they're supposed to work for.